Batman Urban Legends issue 5. The anthology book, which has 4 stories in it. Yeah, Red Hood story. Mr. Giggles, if I remember his name right. Obviously, they capture Batman. Mr. Freeze showed up at the end. Mr. Freeze is working for him, not because of his free will, though, but because he's been basically dosed with the...
It's Mr. Cheer, isn't it? Because it's Cheer Drop.
Cheer Drop, there you go. Yes, but he's been given the Cheer Drop. So Freeze is actually kind of crazy. There's some good art here at the start. There's some more flashbacks. Basically, the first time Jason ever had to sort of do something on his own, he had to save Batman from Riddler. He had to solve a riddle. Has a different art, of course, which is fine. Flashback, it makes sense. So Jason has to do a little bit of investigating and tracks the most likely suspect, who could be this Cheer character, through his wife, who actually helped develop the Scarecrow gas and did come up before. I actually really like the Freeze scenes where he's talking to Batman and he's acting kind of crazy because he's talking to Nora. It was like, oh, this is kind of
very
fun.
Unhinged.
Yeah, it's fun because it's a very different type of Freeze, but it's not because he's acting out a character. I mean, he is, but it's because he's under the influence of something. So it was a fun vibe.
Out of character, but in context.
Yes. So Cheer kind of comes in and says, "Oh, Batman, stop trying to trick him. How dare you?" kind of thing. But he does it with a smile on his face, and he's very sinister. He's got that clown quality to him in a lot of ways.
Yeah, it reminds me a little bit of Mime from
a little
bit.
I could see that. On the big smiley face that's dripping on his jacket, looks actually more like a pumpkin than anything else, but that's whatever.
God damn it, you've just ruined it for me. I hadn't seen that, and now I can't unsee it. If you just color correct that to be orange.
It looks like a pumpkin.
It really does. Joe, it looks like Joe as well. Like it's not, as well as just a pumpkin. Especially it's in the page after the one after he says, "Oh, Batman's just trying to trick you."
Yes.
There's a side view of him looking up at Batman. Batman's all in silhouette.
Mm-hmm.
He looks like the main kind of ghost one from Nightmare Before Christmas. The way the yellow there is dripping from that side view, it looks exactly. I don't know the names of them from Nightmare Before Christmas, but the main one.
I could see it. So Jason breaks into the company where both Tim and his wife worked. He's been kind of not showing up recently, and it's kind of, you can kind of see it's because he's been out doing his Cheer thing. And he became kind of obsessed because his wife was good at her job and he couldn't crack the thing he was working on. So Jason goes kind of, gently interrogates, someone who works here, maybe the boss. And he looks up the kind of the numbers of who's been shipping these ingredients and the chemicals that are used to make this stuff. And he kind of tracks down to where this Cheer guy is. But the cliffhanger of the issue, because Jason, so he will be coming next issue, but the cliffhanger is that Cheer puts on a gas mask on Batman and pumps him full of Cheer Drop. So we're going to get Cheer Drop Batman probably versus Jason next issue, I would imagine.
Well, given that I think next issue is the end of this story.
Yes.
I would hope so.
Yes. So that's a nice big thing for Jason to have to fight. So, solid. I liked all the Mr. Freeze stuff. I think Cheer, despite the pumpkin thing, I actually think he's got a good vibe as a villain, and the way that he was talking to Freeze, I think, was kind of menacing. And, so
it's fun.
Yeah, I've had fun with this story still. I think maybe I have the emotional touch that the stuff with Jason and the kid had back in the first 2 issues, but I'd still happily give this a 7.5.
I think I'm going to be a 7, but I think part of that is the first couple of issues of this kind of set the bar.
Yeah.
And now this is it's still good, but it's not. If it had started like this, I wouldn't have been as invested.
Sure. And then we have a Batgirl story, where Steph and Cass have broken into Wayne Manor, which technically Bruce doesn't own right now, and they're playing video games. I think this is a Margaret Bennett story with Sweeney Boo, on art. And I think the only the critique I have right away is that it felt like Cassie's voice was a little too quippy to me.
Yeah, she felt off to me in a couple of places, and not just quippy either. There was a few things that just felt a bit wrong.
Like I think Steph seems mostly fine. The bubbliness kind of works with her character. It's just kind of who she is. It felt like Cass, and I'm not saying that you have to keep her, not being able to talk properly forever, but like, I think there's a way she speaks when it's done well, where it sounds like someone who's more matter of fact.
I think the one that annoyed me as well was like the misunderstanding.
Hmm.
Like I think there's a bit where Steph's saying, "Oh yeah, we're just house sitting until until Bruce gets the mansion back," and it explicitly uses the word house sitting.
Mm-hmm.
And then Cass says, house squatting good for glutes. I'm like, yeah, that feels like a strange just twisting of it, and that I don't think Cass is really at that.
Yeah, and I'm not like super into the art that much either. I think there's times when it works. I think it works mostly on Steph, bizarrely, but I think like the panels showing like Batgirl when she was investigating this red card like menace, back in the day. Like I'm not super into the art style for the most part. I think it's a little bit better when they've got their masks on though. Like see when Cass has got her full mask on and Steph's got her face mask and her hood up. But I think then, and it gets a bit darker. I was into it a little bit more art wise. Obviously, yeah. I love the idea of the Batgirls doing stuff. So far though, I've not been in love with the little mini stories they've been given. But I think it's just down to writing. It's just down to the concepts that they're actually using.
Yeah, maybe the Batman backup will be the one.
Yeah, this one ends in a bit of a cliffhanger to imply that this girl they do run into is more of like a sort of rebel with a good cause kind of character, and it kind of teases that there's something bigger to,
Yeah, she gets away, so there'll be more.
Yeah. So I
think there's one more part of this still.
Yeah, well, it says end at the end of it, but yeah, it does feel like it's got another part.
Yeah, but I think in terms of like where it is, I think there's one more in the issues. I could be wrong though.
Yeah. So I don't know. I'd probably give it like a 5, just because I felt like cast was a bit off. Art wasn't necessarily working for me. It's just not my style.
I probably agree with that. It's okay.
Yeah, it exists. And probably just a notch above that, but not necessarily thrilling me either. There's the Tim Drake story in here.
Oh, I quite like this.
Like I don't dislike it. Like it's basically Tim is infiltrating this pain cult. This cult that deals with pain. Because it seems like his old friend might have got involved with this before, and these villains are targeting people involved. More interesting stuff for me in this story was the idea that it's still in continuity and detectives aren't meant to be working with the Bat characters, but this detective who's investigating the case intentionally leaves a bunch of stuff in his car for Tim to find.
Just happens to leave them where he might go looking.
Yeah, it's. Yeah, and there's a couple of okay pages. There's a page where Tim's just standing at the corner of a rooftop, and it's kind of a nice page, artistically. Nice use of shadows and whatnot. But yeah, so basically he was told to go way up on the rooftop, and it turned out there's not just one chaos monster. They're all different. They're all different members of this cult. So yeah, that's okay. Yeah.
I think I'm enjoying this more than I expected to, based off this being the writer of the Future State Tim stuff, which I despised. Sure. I'm quite into this, surprisingly.
Yeah.
So yeah, like for me, it's I'm not like it's amazing. It's like a solid 7.
Yeah, but I'll probably like a 6-ish on this. I would say. Final story is the last part of the Grifter story, which is Grifter being kicked out of the Wayne building, having to get his way back in. He makes a deal with it's Leviathan, right? Who hired him originally to kill Lucius. He sort of... That's the thing, you don't really know what side he's playing at. There's a certain point in this issue where I'm like, I really don't know if he's still intending to like do shady shit for Leviathan, or if he's completely on Lucius's side. Obviously, it turns out it's more of a third option, where he's not being a villain, but he's also...
doing his own shit.
He's playing Leviathan, but he's... Yeah, whatever. So, he has some banter with Batman when he's getting back inside the building. He ends up going to save Lucius. There's some action sequences. Runs into Nightwing as well as Batman, and the action's fine. The action's solid. The banter's there. The person in the comms referring to Nightwing having a nice ass. Nightwing has that night ass.
Damn right does.
And but let's be honest here. This is all about him. Like he always wanted to steal all of the stuff from the Bat computer that's in this building. And when it turns out who he's doing this for, he calls in his cavalry and he's like, Wildcats, let's tell them or remind them who we are. And it's his entire Wildcats team.
Assemble, basically.
Yeah, and I have to admit, I've been enjoying this story, but because I don't give a shit about Wildcats and I have no attachment to it, and I've never really read Wildcats.
I barely name half of these characters.
I don't think I could name any of them. All the ones they specifically point out.
Yeah, that's about it.
Yeah. It was kind of like, okay, you're setting up for more Wildcat stuff. I appreciate the attempt. I appreciate that for people who care about Wildcats, this probably means something. For me, because Grifter was a thing where I didn't care about Grifter, but they did enough in the writing of the stories, both in this and the Future State stuff, that I was like, okay, I'm starting to kind of like the shittiness of this character and his kind of like stumbling through life kind of attitude. It made me kind of enjoy the story of that character. But because it like treats all these characters, all these characters are back. I'm like, well, I don't care about Eddie's though. So
yeah, it kind of left me feeling really cold. The end of this 5-part story has no conclusion of its own except to be like, hey, Wildcats.
And it says they'll return. That's the text at the end.
As someone who does not give a shit about Wildcats, that's not a satisfying ending to this story for me.
No. It's a weird thing because if you're reading this Grifter story because you do like Wildcats, this was probably like this probably popped you at the end. You're like, oh, and you're like excited for what's to come. As someone who only get into this because I like the writer and they made Grifter a likable kind of flumbling hero. It was a bit of a cold ending in that sense. Like, am I even going to read, even if it's Williams or Rosenberg, sorry, who's doing the Wildcats story whenever it pops up? Am I going to give a shit and try it? I don't know. I know there's more books. I don't know if I'd be willing to give it a serious chance.
Yeah, if you'd asked me 2 weeks ago, maybe. Now, when it'll be after half of those books have all launched. Well, I mean, it'll be after all of those books in October. If I'm keeping even half of those books, the odds of me caring enough to read a Wildcats book are pretty slim. It's
still a well done, issue of the story in the sense that, the action's really solid, the banter's still there, there's still moments to make you laugh.
I really like the bit where he's got the device for the door with Batman. That whole section was funny and really well played.
Yeah, so,
but also it has no ending for someone who doesn't care about Wildcats.
Yeah, what you rating it?
I feel like I have to give it a 6, which feels harsh, but it's the conclusion to a 5-part story that I didn't care about at the end. So,
Yeah, I don't know. So it's a tough one to rate because I did feel kind of cold on the ending. And it's not that it's a bad ending per se. It's just that I just don't care about what they did, what it built.
I think it's a bad ending for this story, like for this Grifter story.
They were teasing who he was talking to the whole time, so it is kind of a payoff to that in a way, but
I think you can pay off that and still have an ending that's satisfying for this story, though.
Yeah, because we don't really know why they want this. We don't, this issue is especially really played with the what side is he really on? Is he really secretly still going to crawl back to Leviathan? But I didn't really expect that, but they really kind of played it like where he was flipping back and forth. So to not have I guess it's definitive in that he's working with Wildcats, but it'd have been nice to know exactly why they. I don't know, why he got so close to Lucius, because he's been so tied to Lucius between the Future State and then this story. It felt weird not to have more of a concrete kind of feeling of that by the end, but oh well. So I'll give it. I'll say 6.5. Just because it's still a well constructed issue. It's still got fun action. It's still all the elements that I liked before are still there. It's just, Oh, we should also mention he didn't kill Nora Freeze or whoever else he said he killed. The bodies were fakes.
They were like super clones.
Yes. This was just to make people think he'd done it so that they would respect him as a villain or something.
Yeah, and when Batman's like, I don't know how you did it, It's just like, it doesn't matter. Don't think about it.
Yes.